Alright, here's the thing. While you're scrolling through your feed thinking everything's fine, Europe is unraveling in real time. Berlin just saw activists storm a major media building. France is dealing with concert hall chaos. And law enforcement across the continent is openly admitting they're losing the fight against modern crime. And here's what nobody's connecting. These aren't isolated incidents. This is coordinated, this is escalating, and this is exactly what happens when institutions lose control of the narrative and the streets at the same time. I used to sit in those editorial meetings at a major network, watching producers decide which stories got buried and which ones got spun. I saw how the machine worked, how narratives got shaped to protect certain interests, and I walked away from all of it. Now I work independently, I answer to no editorial board, I work for no one but you. And what I'm about to show you is the kind of story they'd rather you didn't piece together. If this kind of independent reporting matters to you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to support journalism that doesn't bend the knee, consider becoming a channel sponsor. It makes a bigger difference than you might think, and it keeps this operation running without corporate strings attached. Let's start in Berlin. A group of pro-Palestinian activists didn't just protest outside, they stormed right into the headquarters of ZDF, one of Germany's biggest public broadcasters. They got inside, they refused to leave even when security demanded it, and they unfurled a massive banner in the lobby that read, "Gaza is your fault too." Think about that for a second. This wasn't a peaceful demonstration. This was a calculated breach of a national media institution. It took police intervention to finally clear them out. And this isn't some one-off event. Berlin has been experiencing wave after wave of anti-Israel protests for weeks now, so much so that German authorities have now ramped up security around federal media buildings and Jewish organizations across the city. You're seeing a pattern here, right? Activists are no longer satisfied with marching in the streets. They're targeting the institutions themselves, the media, the symbols, the infrastructure. And the question you have to ask is, who's coordinating this? Because these actions are happening simultaneously across multiple European capitals, and that doesn't happen by accident. Now let's zoom out, because while activists are storming buildings, Europol, that's the European Union's law enforcement agency, is sounding the alarm about something even bigger. They're saying criminals are now using artificial intelligence for cyber attacks, fraud, and organized crime schemes. Meanwhile, European police are stuck in bureaucratic quicksand. They can't use real-time facial recognition in public spaces because of strict EU data protection laws. Every move they want to make requires endless legal approvals. Europol is basically screaming at this point. They're saying, look, if we don't get access to AI tools, including facial recognition systems, we're going to lose this fight. Criminals are already using cutting-edge technology, and we're still filling out forms in triplicate. So what's the solution? Well, in 2026, the European Commission plans to more than double Europol's staff and boost its technical capacity. Translation: they're gearing up for a surveillance state. More monitoring, more control, more tracking. And they're justifying it by pointing to the rising crime they themselves couldn't prevent. Here's the kicker, though. At the exact same time, the European Commission just banned multiple entry Schengen visas for Russians. That's right, no more multi-entry travel permits. If you're Russian and you want to visit Europe, you're getting a single-entry visa if you're lucky. The EU's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, made it very clear. She said traveling freely in the European Union is a privilege, not a right. The only exceptions? Family members of EU residents, spouses, children, parents, everyone else is out. Germany's foreign ministry has already confirmed they'll comply. So let me get this straight. Europe is tightening its external borders while its internal security is falling apart. Does that make sense to you? Because it doesn't to me. And speaking of Germany, let's talk about what just happened at the UN climate conference in Brazil. Chancellor Friedrich Merz flew all the way to Belém for this big summit where world leaders are supposed to discuss protecting the climate and preserving tropical rainforests. But here's the stunner. Germany showed up with zero financial commitments. Nothing. Merz actually said it out loud. He said it's pointless if Germany achieves climate neutrality alone. Even if we do it today, nothing in the world will change tomorrow. Basically, he's saying, why should we pay for this? Now, Brazil's President Lula was expecting Germany to contribute to a new international fund that rewards countries for preserving forests and penalizes them for deforestation. Brazil and Indonesia have each pledged $1 billion. The UK is talking about contributions, though let's be honest, they're broke. But Germany? just words of support. No cash. Their budget isn't even finalized yet, so Merz flies halfway across the world to a climate summit and essentially says, "We're not paying." That's a massive shift in tone. And right on cue, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres warns everyone that current policies will lead to a global temperature increase of 2.8 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Remember, the Paris Agreement goal is to keep it under 1.5 degrees. So we're way off track, according to the official narrative. And yet, one of the loudest climate advocates, French President Emmanuel Macron, is busy posting videos on social media. He's on a plane to Brazil, and he's video calling Raoni, the legendary chief of the Kayapo tribe in the Amazon. Raoni is one of the most respected figures in indigenous rights and rainforest protection. Macron posts this whole thing on X, showing everyone, "Look, I'm working even while flying, I'm connected with tribal leaders, I care deeply about the Amazon." It's performative activism at its finest. Meanwhile, back in Paris, pro-Palestinian activists tried to shut down a concert by an Israeli conductor at the Paris Philharmonic. They set off smoke bombs, firecrackers, screaming, total chaos. Security had to intervene. Audience members got into physical confrontations with the protesters. 4 people were arrested. The Philharmonic issued a statement regretting that the concert was interrupted multiple times. So here's what's happening. American-funded leftist groups have been organizing pro-Palestinian actions across the US for months. Now that playbook has been exported to Europe. Germany, France, they're both dealing with the same coordinated disruptions, and officials in both countries are openly saying this is orchestrated chaos, which brings me to something very interesting. If you're still with me, drop a comment below. Tell me what you think is really driving all of this. And make sure you're subscribed because this kind of analysis doesn't show up in the mainstream. Bulgaria's parliament just created a special commission to investigate George Soros and his son Alex, along with their network of foundations. And a bit earlier, Donald Trump promised he'd launch an investigation into the Soros family once he's back in office. Now, I'm not here to cheer for Trump or demonize him, but this is noteworthy. You've got 2 separate governments on different continents, both deciding to scrutinize the same people at roughly the same time. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the money trail behind all these activist movements is finally getting too obvious to ignore. Let's shift gears for a second because there's a bizarre story out of the United States that's actually pretty telling. Kanye West, the rapper who torched his entire career with a series of deeply offensive statements, has now publicly apologized. He lost his deals with Adidas, Balenciaga, and other major brands. His net worth dropped by billions. Now he's in New York, meeting with a prominent spiritual advisor, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, and he's blaming his past behavior on struggling with bipolar disorder. He says he wants to start a path toward redemption, toward peace and love. The rabbi responded with something pretty gracious, saying, "A person isn't defined by their mistakes, but by how they correct them." True strength is in the ability to learn and build bridges. They hugged, they made peace, at least publicly. But here's the question. Will Kanye actually get his reputation back? Will the brands return? That decision lies with the very people he offended. So we'll see. It's a fascinating case study in cancellation, apology, and whether redemption is even possible anymore in this culture. Now for something completely different. Japan has deployed its military to deal with a bear problem. Yes, you heard that right. Soldiers are now setting traps because bear attacks have been increasing rapidly. It's gotten so bad that the government decided the self-defense forces needed to get involved. I mean, when your military is fighting wildlife, you know something unusual is happening. Climate change, habitat loss, overdevelopment, probably all of the above. But it's still surreal to picture troops in the woods hunting bears. And finally, let's close with a story out of Germany that perfectly encapsulates how absurd modern Europe has become. A man in Saxony saw a car parked illegally. Being a responsible citizen, he took a photo and submitted it through an official platform designed for reporting parking violations. But the photo didn't just show the car's license plate, it also showed the passenger's face. Fast forward a few months, and the Dresden court ruled that this violated data protection regulations. The man who reported the violation now has to pay the passenger €100 in compensation, plus €627 in court costs, and he has to delete the photo from all his devices, including backups. Why? Because under German law, you can only collect the data that's absolutely necessary. To report a parking violation, you only need the license plate. Faces are off limits. So this guy tried to do the right thing, he tried to help enforce the rules, and he ended up with a €700 penalty. The court explained that the passenger didn't know where his photo was being stored for months, and that's considered non-material harm, which requires material compensation. Think about that. If he'd just walked past and done nothing, he'd be €700 richer. That's Europe in 2025. Activists storming media buildings while police beg for more surveillance tools. Russia getting cut off from multi-entry visas while internal security crumbles. Germany refusing to fund climate initiatives even as the UN cries emergency. France's president doing social media stunts while concert halls get stormed. Investigations into Soros foundations popping up on 2 continents. Kanye West trying to apologize his way back into relevance. Japan's army fighting bears. And a German man getting fined for photographing a parking violation because someone's face was in the frame. Let me recap what we've covered here because it's a lot and it all connects. Berlin saw activists breach a national broadcaster. European police are demanding AI and facial recognition to fight crime they can't control. The EU just cut Russians off from repeat travel access. Germany showed up to a climate summit with empty pockets. Macron posted performative videos with indigenous leaders. Paris had a concert violently disrupted by activists. Bulgaria and Trump are both investigating the Soros network. Kanye West is trying to rebuild his image. Japan deployed soldiers against bears, and a well-meaning German got punished for trying to report illegal parking. This is the state of the West. Institutions are losing legitimacy. Borders are tightening externally, while chaos spreads internally. Surveillance is being sold as the solution to problems governments created, and ordinary people trying to follow the rules are getting crushed by those same rules. You're watching the established order crack in real time, and most people aren't even noticing. So here's what I need from you. If this kind of reporting matters, if you want someone who connects these dots without a corporate filter, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. And if you really want to keep independent journalism alive, consider becoming a channel sponsor. It's how we survive. It's how we keep going without bowing to advertisers or algorithms. This work depends on you, and I don't take that lightly. I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay informed, and don't let them tell you everything's fine when it clearly isn't.